to Greg Explains It All. So this is a crash course about percentages. I'm going to take you through stuff you need to know about percentages. And yes, this is aimed mostly at those of you who are to write your BECE somewhere later during this year. Yes, it's also for anyone who doesn't really understand percentages. This is your video, right? So percentages, when you talk about percentages, it was derived, right? It was derived from the French word percent. Per means out of. Some means 100. So out of 100. Good. So think of any quantity, right? So let me use this one over here. Keep my water in a very cold or very hot, depending on the temperature I want it, right? So the totality of water this can take, right? Or the maximum volume of water this can take can be quantified in terms of percentage as what? 100%. Okay, so the total volume of water this bottle can take is 100%, right? So any quantity at all you think of, the total, like the absolute total there is, can be what? Quantified as 100%. Good. So right over here we have what? 10% of 200 mangoes. You say I'm sharing mangoes, right, to maybe some random kids, right? And I have 200 mangoes, right? And I say I'm giving each kid 10% of what? The 200 mangoes. As I said, 10% means 10 out of 100. This is how you convert it to mass. 10 out of 100. Of means multiplication in mass 2 times. Then you have your 200 mangoes. These 2 zeros takes care of that. In the end, you have 10 times 2, which is going to give you 20 mangoes. So if I'm sharing the mangoes, each person is going to get 20 mangoes if I use 10% of 200 mangoes. Right? Also, there is another method to solve it. So think of this as method 1. Now let's go to method 2. Now, as I said earlier, if you are quantifying, right, you can think of the maximum quantity as 100%. What do I mean by this? 200 mangoes is like the most I have in my basket, right? So that would be 100%. So 200 is what? 100%. So if 200 is 100%, then 10% will be what? Will be what? We do not know it. So we can use a variable to represent that. And let's use x. Yes. 10 times 200, you're going to have 2000. Then x times 100, you're going to have 100x. Now, since we are looking for x, we're going to divide both sides by 100. These 2 zeros, or this 100 takes care of that 100, then these 2 zeros takes care of that. So x is equal to what? 20. Yes, so you see, both methods yielded the same answer. So I like to go with this method because it makes things a bit easier for me to solve. Yes, so if you are solving a multiple choice questions, right, and you get questions like this, right, try and look for the maximum quantity they are talking about and equate it to 100. Then the unknown quantity, right, you just use a variable and represent it in that same way. And one thing you should note, you see, since there was percent here, this right side was for percent, right? When I got down here, I didn't put the 10% over here, right? So they all have to be in line, else you are going to make a mistake in solving. Okay, good. So now that we've dealt with the basics, let's go to something that's a bit more complicated. So let's take a look at this beautiful question I have over here. A landlady rented out her house for 240,000 cedis for 1 year. During the year, she paid 15% of the rent as income tax. She also paid 25% of the rent as property tax. As property tax, and spent 10,000 cedis on repairs. Calculate A, the landlady's total expenses. How are we going to do this? Were we given a total amount, right? Were we given some total quantity that we can use for 100%? Yes, we were. That's what? 240,000 cedis, right? And they said out of that, she paid 15% as income tax, right? So let's find the income tax. So solution, income tax. So we know 240,000 cedis is what? 100%. If 240,000 cedis is 100%, then what would 15% be? You know, 15% is the what, income tax, but we want the actual number, how much in money, right? So let's make it X over here. So you're going to have what? 15 times 240,000. So it's going to be 240,000 like this times 15, right? Being equal to 100x, right? So since we are looking for x, we're going to divide both sides by 100, divide that by 100. Now the reason why I didn't multiply this by that straight away is because I'm going to use the zeros from the 100 to take care of this. So that in the end, I have 2,400 times 15. So let me work that real quick on my calculator. I don't want to waste a lot of time. So so 2,400 times 15 is 36,000. Yes. So let me just make it x is equal to 36,000 cedis. So what is this 36,000 cedis? That is the amount the landlady paid as income tax. Good. So we're done with that. But we are not done solving the question. What's next? She also paid 25 of the rent. So 25% of the rent as property tax. So let's look for property tax. Now we know that 240,000 is equal to what? 100%. If that is equal to 100%, then that 25% is going to be what? We don't know. So we can put y here. You have 240,000 times 25, right? Then 100y, because 100 times y is y. Sorry, 100y. You divide by 100 because we're looking for y. This takes care of that. 2 zeros takes care of those 2 zeros. Now we have 2,400 multiplying what? 25. My calculator is giving me a bit of a trouble. Okay, 2,400 times 25, you're going to get 60,000 cedis. So it means the amount she paid on property tax is 60,000 cedis, right? Then she spent 10,000 cedis on repairs. She spent 10,000 cedis on repairs. Good. So that one we don't even have to calculate for anything. It was already given. So we were tasked to find the landlady's total expenses, right? So total expenses is going to be equal to what? Property tax plus income tax plus the what? Amount she spent on repairs. What is the property tax? The property tax is 60,000 cedis. Plus, what's the income tax? 36,000 cedis. And repairs is 10,000. 60,000 plus 36,000, we are going to have 96,000. Yes. The 96,000 plus 10,000, you're going to have 106,000. Yes. Like this. So that is the total expenses. But we are not out of the clearing yet. B, we were asked to find the remainder of the rent after the landlady's expenses. The remainder of the rent after the landlady's expenses. Now, bear with me. Remainder of the rent. What are they talking about? The landlady rented a house for a price of 240,000 cedis, out of which she paid property tax, income tax, and she used some of the money on repairs because the person who moved out of the house maybe messed the place up a bit. So she has to repair it for the new tenants coming, right? So all that amounted to 106,000 cedis. So if you have to find the remainder of the rent after expenses, it means you take everything she spent, which is 106,000 cedis, then you subtract it from what? The rent money she received. So the remainder is going to be equal to 240,000 minus 106,000, just like this, right? So we can do it as rough work over here. 240,000 minus 106,000 here amounts to 0, 0, 0. 0 minus 6 is impossible. You borrow 1 from here. 3 is left here. 10 minus 6 is 4. 3 minus 0 is 3. 2 minus 1 is 1. In the end, you have the remainder being 134,000 cedis. Yes, I hope that is understandable. If you didn't get it, kindly go back and rewatch that part of the video. Thank you. Right. Now we have one last part of the question left. Then we're out of there. The percentage of the rent she spent on repairs. The percentage of the rent she spent on repairs. So to solve this, you need to know the amount of money she spent on, she used on repairs. Yes, she used on repairs. Right. So, see, we know she used 10,000 cedis on repairs, right? Okay, percentage. Percentage spent on repairs. We know she used 10,000 cedis on repairs, right? Now that 10,000 cedis over the total money she received, which is 240,000 cedis, times what? 100. So these two zeros takes care of that. Good. And the two zeros over here left takes care of that. Now we are left with what? 100 over 24. Right, so I don't want to waste time, so let me just punch this real quick. 100 over 24 divided by, so that's going to be 4.167%. Good. So the percentage of the rent she spent on repairs is 4.167%. Right. So that is it for this particular question. Now we are moving to a different question now. Mansa earns a salary of 10,000 cedis per month as a sales girl. In addition to the salary, she is given commission of 1.5% of whatever sales she makes in a month. In January this year, she makes sales of 7,500,000 cedis. What is the total amount Mansa earned at the end of January? Okay, let me do it here since this is much brighter. Mansa earns a salary of what? 10,000 cedis per month as a sales girl. Okay. So let me just write that data down. Salary she earns per month, right, is going to be equal to what? 10,000 cedis. In addition to that salary, she is given a commission of 1.5% of whatever sales she makes in a month, right? So try and get that. I pay you 10,000 cedis every month, regardless of whatever happens, right? Then After that money I'm paying you, if you're able to bring people like to buy my products, right, I'm going to give you a commission of 1.5% on whatever you make, right? Whatever sales you make for that particular month. Okay. So what does this mean? In January, she makes sales of 7,500,000 cedis. It means I'm going to give her a commission of 1.5% of this money. So commission is double M, yes. Good. Commission for January. Okay. For January is equal to 1.5% means out of 100, right? Times what? 7,500,000. Good. So we're going to tackle this, yes. These two zeros over here takes care of what? Nope. Takes care of the last two zeros. In the end, you have 1.5 times what? 7. Okay, this is 75,000. Good. So 1.5 times 75,000. How are we going to solve this? 1.5 times the number. That's a bit tricky. Not really tricky, but I'm going to show you a simple way we're going to solve this, right? So it's easier to think of this 1.5 as a whole number. So we can make it 15 like this, right? Times 75,000. But if you do it this way, there's going to be a bit of a problem because you've moved the decimal point, right? You've moved it backwards. So you have to show that the decimal point was moved. So since we moved it once, it's going to be times 10 raised to the power -1, like that, to show that we moved the decimal point. So now it's easier to work with this. So let me do that real quick and okay. So 75,000 times 15, yes. I had 1,125,000. Yes. Yes, that is it. Times 10 to the power -1, right? But we don't need this in our final answer. So what are we going to do? We're going to use it to move backwards. Since we move this way, we are now going to move the opposite direction, right? So this way, I mean. The final answer is going to be, yes, so this is what? 112,500. Good. 112,500. So that was a commission for January. Wow. Why is the commission much larger than the amount she actually makes in a year? Well, depends. She's given a commission of 1.5% of whatever sales she makes in a month. In January this year, she makes sales of 7,500,000. Good. What is the total amount Mansa earned at the end of January? Right. So it means the total amount she earned. The total amount earned is going to be equal to what? A salary per month, which is 10,000 cedis. Plus what? The commission, 112,500. Right, so let's do this real quick. 112,500 plus 10,000. So that's going to be 122,500 cedis. Yes. So that's the total amount Mansa earned at the end of January. So I do hope this makes sense to you. And yes, that is it for this crash course on percentages.